Australian Pork Limited came to us, Star Consultancy, asking to conduct qualitative market research in two key demographics, busy beef preferers and guaranteed easies. Providing Star Consultancy with a range of pre-existing demographic-based information, we set out to uncover methods to ensure that Australian pork not only stays relevant in the eyes of the Australian consumer meat market, but also sustains a consistent and growing profit margin. After analysing the pre-existing data sets provided by Australian Pork Limited, we decided to explore the ways in which Australian pork promotional strategies were converting consumers to consume pork products. Here our managerial decision problem was, should promotion strategies be changed to make pork products more appealing to BBP and GE than its alternatives? So how did we interpret the brief and why did we choose this problem? It was found throughout our secondary research that within the marketing mix, promotional strategies was one of the most important. To break down the managerial decision problem further, we wanted to identify which specific combination of promotion strategies would have the greatest appeal to attract BBP and GE to buy more pork products on a regular basis. Our aim is to make pork a regularly consumed everyday meat, not just for special occasions. We needed to find out how this could be achieved and did this by researching two segmented target markets with different needs. From pre-existing data, we understood that BBP and GE both have different characteristics, so to combat this problem, we conducted separate interviews specifically with people that fit the demographic characteristics. Our research objective 1 was to analyse how BBP and GE perceive current pork promotional strategies in comparison to its competitors. Here our goals were to assess the current perceptions of Australian pork as a brand, and Australian pork's promotional campaigns compared to that of their competitors. Our secondary research objective was to examine which promotional channels influence BBP and GE's meat preferences the most in 3 months. Here our goal was to examine consumer-preferred media channels, to assess perceptions of different promotional channels, and to examine the key outlets that influence meat purchases. Finally, research objective 3 was concerned with determining the most influential sales promotional strategies targeted at BBP and GE within 3 months. Through this, we wanted to assess perceptions of current Australian pork advertisements, to analyse the most influential purchase conversion methods, and to assess the time period of which any change in meat purchases will be adopted, with our goal being 3 months.
Methodology. Because of the differences in demographic characteristics, our first goal was to screen potential interviewees to ensure that they fell within one of the two categories. We screened a total of 80 individuals through an online survey, which provided us basic details such as perception of pork products, how many times a week they ate pork, and the influences that persuaded them to purchase the products they do. We then conducted 4 focus groups consisting of 5 people. The participants were selected through stratified sampling and based on the screener criteria as we used the groups as a method of probing out specific questions, as well as using the group situation to bounce ideas off the participants. Finally, in order to gain a fuller understanding of individuals' perception, we conducted 16 individual interviews for GE and 14 individual interviews for BBP. Once again, participants were selected through stratified sampling to ensure that the participants matched the consumer's criteria. Throughout this process, we had 4 key limitations. Firstly, based on the interview candidates, the data sets were skewed towards BBP as we did not have access to a large number of participants who fit the criteria for GE. Secondly, we had a demographic bias, with most of the participating subjects from the Sydney CBD and were also related or close family friends. Thirdly, the time limit for this project was relatively short, not allowing us the time to perfect the questions and interview technique. Finally, our inexperience in conducting interviews was a limiting factor as many of us stumbled and wrongly worded some questions.
Before we began, we wanted to analyse the current perception of pork, as this would help form promotional strategies targeted to our specific audience. From our 80 screener results, we were able to create a word cloud to highlight the key words people use to describe pork. The majority of participants thought pork was tasty, versatile, and cheap. However, some people had reservations describing pork as fatty and smelly. In our focus groups, we decided that to better understand what GE and BBP liked, we needed to collect their opinions on existing pork campaigns. Some of the key quotes from the focus groups was that it only targeted women, it seemed like dirty humour, and the pork did not look appealing. So the second advertisement was the Everything campaign.
To further assess the current perceptions of pork, we also looked into perceptions of its competitors' advertisements. For this, we used the 2007 Australia Day Lamb ad and the 2013 You're Better on Beef ad.
While it was entertaining and humorous, some participants thought it was over-aggressive and would have liked more information or images of the lamb. The You're Better on Beef ad was well liked by most of the focus groups. In particular, it was entertaining and targeted to both males and females, and it felt relatable. While there was little information given on beef, the simple words such as protein, iron, and zinc was effective and noticed by viewers. This ad ended up being the most liked by all 4 focus groups.
In order to fulfill our second research objective, we firstly wanted to establish the top 3 ways that each demographic access media. Being younger in age, the BBP preferred social media to access information. However, GE did not have the time for social media due to family and work commitments and opted for television to gain information. What was interesting was that BBP did say that they discredited Facebook pop-up ads, however paid closer attention to television ads if they were a catchy and good ad. This view is similar to GE, however, they believe that the television was a more reliable source of information over social media. We also analysed the top 10 promotional strategies according to Cron.com. From the top 10, 3 key promotional channels are highlighted, including social media, which was determined mainly for BBP, who preferred social media advertisements and its availability. Also, point of sales promotions, which adopted a try before you buy or cooking demonstration method, encouraging consumers to make the same meals at home. And lastly, customer appreciation events, for example, the similar concept to the Hyde Park night noodle markets, to encourage the variations of cuisine that can be created by pork products. However, this strategy is subject to the availability of consumers on weekend.
In order to fulfill our third research objective, we looked into methods to convert interests into purchases. Throughout our individual interview questions, one trend was repeatedly brought up, and this was of an in-store promotion that would directly influence meat selection. In-store taste testing coupled with simple, easy-to-follow and easy-to-access recipes were one of the key drivers that could be used to sway consumers. However, deeper investigation into this trend saw that these strategies would need to be coupled with a social media and television campaign using the elements previously discussed. Finally, we wanted to assess the time period in which differences in purchases would be adopted. Here you can see that most consumers would change meat preferences immediately if they were influenced to do so. Tying it all together. Our research saw that Australia Pork has a pre-existing good brand image. However, our focus groups showed that people like having some more information about the nutritional value of pork, as well as access to simple recipes. Simply put, Australian Pork shouldn't just target females, however target a range of demographics in their ads. They should show some good photos of pork, especially of meals that are non-fatty and easy to make. And finally, Australia Pork should emphasise the Australian way, making the product relatable and personal to the Australian meat market. We also found out that the demographics were happy to change meats if the following 3 criteria were met. Firstly, they were more aware of the characteristics of the meat, if there was ready access to easy-to-follow recipes, and if the ads were supported by in-store and online promotions.
To conclude our thoughts, the answer is yes, the promotional strategies for Australian pork should be changed. How so? Our analysis into specific promotional channels uncovered the following. In order to appeal to different types of consumers, different channels of communication must be used. Our findings show that Guaranteed Easies prefer television advertisements, whilst Busy Brief preferers depended on social media in making their product decisions. Within these channels of communication, the advertisement must showcase the product in a ready-to-eat style with the inclusion of recipes which detail the nutritional value of the product. Overall, these factors contribute in changing consumer perceptions of pork as an everyday meat. These ads must be coupled with in-store promotions such as taste testing. Australian Pork should revise either their packaging or some element of their website or brochures on their in-store promotions table, which provide consumers with easy-to-follow recipes to introduce them to pork products. As for results, most consumers from both demographics were open to changing their meat purchases on the spot, provided they had a good reason to do so. These reasons could include that the sample meats were good, that the recipes were easy to follow, the price was reasonable, and that the meat was fresh, the latter of which Australian Pork already achieve. By engaging in each of these recommendations, we believe Australian Pork could significantly increase their sales and thus their overall profits. Thank you.